Uh, Om Narayanam Suragurum Jagadekanatham Bhaktapriyam Sakalalokanamaskrtancha Traiguണ്यवर्जितमजं विभुमाद्यमीशं वन्दे भवद्नममरासुरसिद्धवन् नारायणाय परिपूर्णगुणार्णवाय विश्वोदयस्थितिलयो नियतिप्रदाय ज्ञानप्रदाय विबुधासुरसौख्यदुःख सत्कारणाय वितताय नमो नमस्ते नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरूंश्चागीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि देशतः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधान् गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्यादुक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम् हरिः ओम्. Welcome everyone to the weekly once Pratipadartha of the Bhagavad-Gita. We are currently at the 15th shloka of the 8th chapter. I think we had completed till the 14th shloka of the 8th chapter. That 14th shloka, Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashah Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yoginah. Ananya Cheta, the ones who have na anya chetas, no other thought in their mind. Satatam, always, like eternally. Yaha, those, mam, to me, smarati, mam smarati. They keep, remembering him to the extent where they keep relishing those memories. These are experiential memories, right? All are, past, present, and future. All experiences are primarily Bhagavan. All the good experiences are where the Bhagavan is, right? So there are many instances in which he has helped us so far how to do his Marana, right? The elements in which we can recognize him, right? Those things came in the Jnana Vijnana, which is the 7th chapter. And this chapter also talks nicely about some of those things. It has spoken about some of those things. He says, you can't do Smarana only during Antakala, right? It has to be Sarva in the Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara. That's what Krishna says. Little while ago, in the same chapter, he says, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara. Right? So, and Smarana is about our life living experiences, not something that we have perhaps only heard about, right? It's not just that. Smarati Nityashaha, always, again. See, this is interesting, right? Padalalitya, Satatam, Nityashaha. They all, they look like they mean the same. Nitya, always, Satatam, always, right? Sometimes it gives a doubt. Is there a punarukti dosha in Sanskrita? In the poetry, they are very careful in not repeating words. So much so that an additional usage of the same word, we are forced to look for a secondary meaning, right? Many a times. So, Satatam Nityashaha, Tasya Aham Sulabha. I am very easy for him. See, Brahma, Parabrahma speaking, right? Bhagavan speaking. Tasya aham sulabha he Partha. I am very easily available for him, O Partha. Nitya yuktasya yoginaha, of that yogi who is nitya yukta, who is constantly engaged. See, satata, nitya shaha, nitya yukta, again and again and again. When you say again and again and again, right? So 3 times. It's like one underlining, right? It says something at certainty. I think Bhagavan is here is doubly, triply ensuring that that satata is underlined always. Like and that's a difficult state to be. Nitya is such a commonly used word, but such a difficult concept to even comprehend. The minute I say now, that now is gone into the past. Right now, eternally now is such a powerful state to be. Not a single moment we can be distracted from that. And that's very difficult. So that's where perhaps 3 times, Satatam, Nityashaha, Nityayuktasya. And the shloka, right? I mean, Ananya Chetaha, without any other deviating thought. No, Satatam, always, the one who keeps on remembering Bhagavan in the past activities, in the current activities, in the future going to happen activities, right? Nityashaha, tasya aham sulabhaha. I am very easy. He's there. Basically, he's telling he's already there, right? So when we initially look into the questions from Arjuna, किम तत् ब्रह्म किम अध्यात्म किम कर्म हे पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किम प्रोक्तम अधिदैवं किमुच्यते अधियज्ञः कथम कः अत्र देहेस्मिन्. Like, who is this Brahma? What is this Adhyatma? What is this Karma? What is this Adibhuta? What is called as Adidaiva? Who is this Adiyajna and how is he? How should we think about you? These are the eightfold questions that started the eighth chapter, right? Arjuna Uvacha. He asked, what are these things? And when we look into them very closely, they are all Brahma. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Brahma is Brahma. Okay. Akshara Brahma Paramam. Like, Swabhava Adhyatma Uchyate. Our own Swabhava is Adhyatma. Realizing ourselves. In realizing ourselves, there are different ways of looking at this, right? In realizing ourselves, at the end of the day, we are only realizing more and more of Brahma, Parabrahma. Right? That's also one way of increasing the jnana. Atma jnana will somewhere equate us to some Parabrahma jnana. But Parabrahma jnana is so endless, we might never be able to achieve that. Right? So we don't know. Right? So Adhyatma is also Brahma. Karma, Bhuta Bhava, Karma Brahma Udbhavam Vidhi. The third chapter, Karma Yoga, Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi, Brahmakshara Samudbhavam. Right? Karma is also born in Brahma. Right? Bhuta Bhava Udbhava Karaha Visargaha. That Visarga that has created the various bhavas of people. That is that karma, that is the karma, right? Prakriti. Prakriti is the ultimate karma. Right? Prakarshanat Krita, like it's the best creation. That entire nature itself is the best creation. Such a magical, such a lovely, such a magnificent, creation. That's the best karma. Like Vividhata Bhava, different Bhava, Bhuta Bhava, Udbhava Kara, right? So when we see everything is Brahma, so in that mode, and then he says, don't, when you at the time of departure of this body, whatever thoughts we carry at that moment, right, is what our next life will be. Like, we are in a way shaping up where we will be in the next form. I mean, let's not take it to the level of the birth, death, the way it is seen in the Puranas and things like that. In the current life, see, there are different phases in which we are born again. Right? After the graduation day, we are dead as a student. We are perhaps born as an employee, born as an earner, money earner, maybe as a businessman. Something we are always getting into new phase in life, new lease of life. Different phrases also idiomatically. We also use that term, right? Lease of life. Whenever the janma happens, so whatever thoughts you carry last, whatever imprint, whatever bhava we carry last, whatever that imprint we carry about ourselves is what we will end up beginning with in whichever new job we get into, whichever new venture we get into, whichever new phase of life that we get into. Like if you are in a very depressed kind of a state at the end phases of my bachelorhood, and no matter what marriage does to me, that depression is not completely wiped out. I still carry the imprint, right? So in the new janma, you carry forward. So smarana is that's why very very important. Constant Bhagavad smarana. No, it's not easy for somebody to. That's what even Arjuna is asking. Prayana kale chakatam jneyosi. How are you to be thought about? How are you to be known at the time of prayana? Because when we see prayana kala, we are all with a complete force. We are trying to cling on to this body. And that's what we will be doing. If we are drowning, we will be pushing so much of pressure to pull somebody else down, right? So we will be, we will be desperately trying to, climb ourselves up. And there are these stories of this monkey, right? In one of those Puranas, there is this story of the monkey which tries to save its child when there is flooding happening, right? After a point in time, it's on top of the child, right? Because when the water level becomes exceedingly unbearable, out of control, then it tries to save itself up by putting the child below, right? So uh, we don't know at the time of Prayana Kala, how should we to think about you, Bhagavan? Right? So that's a very intelligent question from Krishna, sorry, from Arjuna. So Krishna's answer, no, when we look into this entire discourse, from shloka number 5 onward, till shloka number 14, it's all about smarana, how to do the chintana. Beautifully, we also see this thing, right? Kavim Purana Manshasitaram. Now, that shloka, I don't know if I could stress a little more on that shloka the last week when we, or the previous time when we looked into this. That shloka is the one of the best expressions of bhakti, and the earliest amazing expression of bhakti in the Bhagavad Gita. Kavim Purana Manusha and loaded with Upanishadic phrases like Anoraniyam. Then whenever we hear the term Anoraniyamsam, we should also imagine invariably, Mahato Mahi, Mahiyamsam, like, Anoraniyamsam, Mahato Mahiyamsam. So that goes naturally, right? Because it's it's quotation from a Upanishad, right? Similarly, Aditya Varnam Tamasaha Parasta. So line after line, phrase after phrase, it's coming directly from Aditya Varnam. That comes in that when we chant the Purusha Sutta, right? I think it's taken from the Shweta Shvatara. Veda Ahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parasta Tameva Vidyam Amritamiha. I forgot. Nanya Pantha Vidyate Yanaya. Forgot, sorry. But there is some line that we chant during the Purusha Sukta. So these lines are, very firmly rooted in different Upanishads, right? So so he says, Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha. So when we constantly think about him, and that shloka, that's ninth shloka, is it? Kavim Purana Manushasitaram Anoraniyam Sam Anusmariyet. Yeah, one who does the Anusmarana of Bhagavan as the Kavim, Puranam Kavim, Anushasitara, the one who does the Anushasana, one who does the governance, sovereign, Anoha Aniyamsam, Sarvasya Dhataram, like, the one who is the protector of everyone. Dhata is the Poshaka, the one who is was the caretaker of everyone, like, Dhataram, Achintya Rupam, unimaginable Rupa, Achintya Rupam, Aditya Varna, Tamasah Parastat Aditya Varna. Beyond all possible darknesses, it is the shining light of Aditya, like Aditya Varna. Okay, so that's the kind of illuminating image of the Bhagavan in terms of Anusmarana that we need to do, right? So there are different aspects in which we can do the Anusmarana. So this shloka that we saw is the quintessential summary of this the eighth chapter. This one shloka perhaps tells us everything. Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha. The one without any other deviating mind, constantly, does the smarana. Smriti is sampramosha, right? So that's the lingering, it's relishing those moments, okay, those experiences. We hear that Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Anubhuti Vishaya Sampramosha Smritihi. So that definition is very nice when we see the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So Smarana Nityashaha Tasya Aham Sulapaha. I am very easily attainable for him. O Partha, one who is a Nitya Yukta Yogi. This Nitya Yukta Yogi, something that we also heard in the fifth chapter, right? Nyaya Sanitya Sannyasi. You can't be like a part-time sannyasi, right? Nitya is such a very powerful Nitya Sannyasi. When you are a Nitya Sannyasi, na dveshyati na kankshati. You don't have any liking or disliking. Because at that time, Arjuna was asking, right? Should I take to begging? Because this war is gory. If you are a sannyasi, if you have no clinging on to the material world, why would you be happy or sorrow for anything that happens, right? So that's the Nitya Sannyasi. The concept of Nitya was brought in. But who's a Nitya Yogi? That Nitya Sannyasi is a Nitya Yogi, right? So that's what we saw earlier. Here we see the Nitya Yukta Yogina. So that's the 14th shloka. Now we move on to the 15th shloka, right? So this entire thing is perhaps we are into halfway mark. Out of the total 28 shlokas, we have 14 that we saw, which is all about Chintana of the Bhagavan. I think this will get accentuated little further And now we will hear more and more about the Brahma Loka, that actual Brahma, Akshara Brahma. What is that Brahma? Like, because Aksharam Brahma Paramam. This entire next part, I think we will hear the description of the Brahma, the big Brahma. What is that big Brahma? First, he goes on to say, Shloka number 15. I think if you click on the link given under the room title, will be taken directly to that. This is a very useful website that we refer to. It is put together by the VMLT, Vande Mataram Library Trust, which is put together by Dr. Sampadananda for the Aurobindo Ashram. Quite useful. It's got the shlokas. It's got the shlokas in both the Devanagari script as well as in the anglicized, the English script, the INST or something like that. So there is some script there. You can look into that. And it gives us the Padacheda, breakdown of the words, and there's a glossary or the dictionary on the top. There are multiple hyperlinks. So we toggle between the shloka link and the dictionary link. The dictionary link has the word by word meaning as well, and unjumbled. Usually the shlokas are in a jumbled format, all the words. But you need to unjumble them a little bit to get the prose context, the prose order. That is given in a section called Anvaya. So these are the few things that we see, and quite useful when we read them again and again and again. We will get comfortable. So with this, we move on to Shloka 15 of this chapter. You click on the link given under the room title, will be taken there. Right? The Shloka is Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayamashashvatam नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमाङ्गताः मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतं नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमाङ्गताः. The Padacheda is Mam Upetya Punaha Janma Dukkha Alayam Ashashvatam. Punaha Janma becomes Punar Janma. Dukkha Alayam is Dukkhalayam. Dukkhalayam, Dukkhalayam, or it cannot be Sandhi, it can be Samasa, so it can be two different ways of Samasas also. Ashashvatam. Na apnuvanti is na apnuvanti. Na apnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gataha. Anvaya. Paramam sandhim paramam samsiddhim gataha mahatmanaha माम उपेत्य दुःखालयम अशाश्वतम पुनः जन्म न आपनुवन्ति. What does that mean? Paramam samsiddhim gataha mahatmanaha. Those mahatmanaha, those mahatmas who have attained the parama gati, parama samsiddhi gati. Okay, paramam samsiddhim gataha, who have gone to the parama samsiddhi. Parama is ultimate. Sam is good, well. Siddhi is the capability, the achievement, right? Siddhi, samsiddhi. Parama samsiddhim gataha mahatmanaha. No, mahatmanaha, right? There are 2-3 times in which mahatma as a reference comes. Once he says, Samahatma Sudurlabha, the one who says Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Samahatma Sudurlabha, in the 7th chapter, the one who says that Vasudeva is everything, right? That kind of a Mahatma is very, very rare, right? One who completely surrenders to Vasudeva being everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Samahatma Sudurlabha. Then he says, Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashrita. The Mahatma in this 9th chapter. So, that comes in the next chapter. Okay. So, Daivim Prakritimash. Okay, Mahatma. So, Mahatma as a reference, right? When we see more and more of it, I think it comes perhaps to indicate a Vaishnava, a complete Krishna Bhakta, one who attains the Krishna Bhava. The ISKCON people call it as the Krishna consciousness, right? Some people call it differently, Krishna Bhava. I think that's what Shri Krishna refers to here when he says Mahatmana. Okay, so Paramam Samsiddhim Gataha Mahatmanaha, those Mahatmanaha who have attained the Parama Samsiddhi. Click on dictionary. Paramam Samsiddhim Gataha Mahatmanaha, the highest perfection reaching the great souls that have reached the highest perfection. Like in the dictionary of this website, Mahatmanaha, the Mahatmas, the great souls, Paramam Siddhim Samsiddhim Gataha, okay, having reached, or the ones who are reaching, Parama Samsiddhi, or the highest perfection. Mam Upetya, having come to me. Upetya, having acquired me. Okay, like Mam Upetya, having come to me, or having been with me. Okay, Dukkha Alayam Ashashvatam Punaha Janma Na Apnuvanti. Punaha Janma, rebirth, Na Apnuvanti, they won't attain. What kind of a Punarjanma? Which is Dukkha Alaya Ashashvata. Janma is Dukkha Alaya, right? So uh, he makes that very very clear, right? This world, at the time of birth itself, we are bound by the dukkha. Something like that he says. No, I mean in the seventh chapter, what is that line he says? Uh, Towards the end of the seventh chapter, he says that. So basically, the Janma, the samsara, is ashashvata. It is not permanent. Okay, and then it is the alaya of all forms of dukkha. Right? Uh, Ichha dvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham. That delusion, at the time of sarge itself, at the time of creation itself, the living beings will acquire that. So when that kind of a delusion is created at the time of birth itself, this birth is dukkhalaya. Like it is ever into the painful world, right? Uh, so basically, when he's talking about the previous shloka, where he says that uh, ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nityashah tasyaham sulabha partha. Okay, nitya yukta yoginaha. Okay, he says, I am easy for them. It's easy for them to acquire me, attain me. And in this state, okay, one of the first advantages of being in this state, which is the ultimate state, is that they do not get this punarjanma, which is dukkhalaya and ashashvata. Now, we can understand this in couple of ways, right? One is that our janma within the day, within our life, within every phase in our life, we have many, many small births. Uh, like, for example, some people even equate each of our breath cycle to be a birth and death indication. Some people indicate our, like, for example, I mean, this breath, right? Every prana apana, inhalation, exhalation, right? They equate that to be the state of birth and death. Some people equate every sleep cycle as death and birth again, right? So there are different ways in which, and in some people, our genesis, like from balya to brahmacharya, there are different milestones. Okay, these are all different births. For many people, it's like every day, daybreak is a birth. Now, when we look into that, cycle, every new phase of life, every day we have problems. Every day there are dukkhalaya. When we look into the phases of life, every, like for example, a graduate, right? Just before the graduation, his entire concern was to pass the exam, to get good scores, to get good credits and things like that. After that, till then, whenever he goes to the temple or we go to the temple, we keep praying for that small milestone, right? And after crossing that milestone, we are born into a new phase where we will start all over again from the bottom, right? Then it's like, oh, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. That becomes the big overarching problem. Once I attain that, and the thing is that, getting a job is liberation. After that, I will not ask for anything from you, oh God. So that's the kind of a mood we get into, right? But no, after job, then there are no, there are tens of other pressures that will come, right? need to have properties, need to have savings, need to have position, need to have family. Like, there are many, many other things, and each one of them will have their own ramifications, right? So whenever we think that, I will reach there, then I'm liberated forever, that may not be the end outcome, right? That may not be the end of it. Okay, the more we come to a new janma, okay, it's always a dukhalaya, right? Whether it's a new phase, new day, we think that, oh, let me just crash out for the day. Is Raat Ki Subah Nahi, right? One of the goriest pictures, one of the most tense movies is Raat Ki Subah Nahi. Basically, there is no, and getting the Raat, getting the night itself is a big thing, right? I'm like, I'll be done with this day. Like, I'll bury this day. But no, the bad karma of today will resurface into new problems in tomorrow's life, right? When we so that's the prarabdha karma. So in my current life, if I think that, death is gonna solve everything, no, it will hold me back, right? So he's telling that the biggest advantages of among all the advantages, the biggest thing about acquiring me, because that is easy, right? Ananya chetaha, the one without any kind of a deviating thought. Satatam, nityashaha, nityayuktaha. Like, three times he's stressing on the importance of now, 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 all the time. Eternally now, in that kind of a state. No, sulabh, no, aham sulabhaha. I'm very, very easy. And once you acquire me as a Mahatma in your highest Parama Samsiddhi, because that's not easy, right? Constantly thinking about the Bhagavan in everything is not easy, right? Our delusions will always take us elsewhere. Firstly, it's not even easy to think that, Naham Karta. You know, Naiva Kinchit Karomiti Manyeta. In the fifth chapter, there is there's a phrase, right? In all actions that I do, when we understand the Brahmanyadhaya, like, when we understand that constant yukta kind of a thought process, nothing is what we do, right? Everything is Bhagavan. So that level of deep level of understanding is, sarva, yajna tapasam bhoktaram, like, bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. See, there are different aspects in this Bhagavad Gita so far that Bhagavan has helped us in getting a picture of how to recognize him, how to remember him, right? How to always do his chintana. And that's extremely difficult. And when you do that, I'm very easy. Once you acquire me, mamupetya, okay, punarjanmana vidyate, mamupetya punarjanma dukhalayam ashashvatam na apnuvanti, mahatmanaha, right? He calls those people as mahatmanaha, right? That's this shloka, samsiddhim paramangataha. Let's quickly see what Aurobindo translation says for this. It's very easy. And now, from now on, I think we will hear more and more about that Parabrahma. What is the might? The first thing is that, no, you don't have any return back, right? Even when you achieve the Swarga Loka, I think this goes, see, 8th chapter, 9th chapter, and the first big chunk of the 10th chapter, about 10, 11 shlokas, it is one continuous discourse from Bhagavan, right? In the some of these things, in the next chapter, there is a line. Even Swargaloka, at one point in time, once we exhaust our punya score, punya balance sheet, right? Whatever, punya as an account. I don't know. Sutaji might have a better accounting term for it. Okay, there is an accrual of punya, right? You exhaust all that punya score, you will again shine punya martya lokam vishanti. That's what it says in the next chapter. So any kind of a thing that we acquire, a janma will bring us back into this dukhalaya. It's a never-ending dukhalaya. So Aurobindo says, having come to me, mamupetya, these great souls, mahatmanaha, come not again to birth. No? Punarjanma na apnuvanti. Okay. This transient and painful condition, transient is the ashashvata, and painful condition of our mortal being, dukhalaya, they reach the highest perfection. paramam samsiddhim gataha. Right? That's the main thing, Akshara Brahma, right? I think here we will hear more and more about that Brahma concept. But again, he's not done, right? This entire thing. See, at the end of the day, it's very easy to say Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Done. Everything is Brahma, right? But the beauty lies in looking at the variety that is this creation. Prakriti has so many different things. They're all coming from the same Panchamahabhuta. A different permutation combination of the same Panchamahabhuta has so much in this Prakriti, right? So the beauty is in this multiplicity. We have to look at this Vividhata. That's where the Vijnana comes. The Vistarana, like it's the expanded, explained, elaborated kind of a, that's the Vijnana. Visheshaka, Vistruta, Vikrishta. Okay, so there is a Vistara. That's the Vijnana. So this entire thing, see, seventh chapter is Jnana Vijnana. And this entire Shatka is into Vibhuti. We go to Vibhuti. I think this is the Akshara Brahma. It's all special. Okay, these are all the special characteristics of the Brahma, Parabrahma. I think we need to. So while everything is at Parabrahma, it's important to understand the karma that is born out of him. The bhuta that he brings together, the prakriti that he's kept here, the adhyatma that, the atma that he's, the amsha within his own amsha, right? We are all his own amsha. Mamayavamsho jiva, okay, that's what we heard in the seventh shloka of the 15th chapter. Okay, we move on to the 16th shloka. So this is all about Brahma, right? 16th shloka he says, ब्रह्मभुवनालोकाः पुनरावर्तिनो अर्जुन मामुपेत्यत कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते ब्रह्मभुवनालोकाः पुनरावर्तिनो अर्जुन मामुपेत्यत कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते. Excuse me, I was getting some sneeze. Okay. ब्रह्मभुवनालोकाः पुनरावर्तिनो अर्जुन मामुपेत्यत कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते. The Padacheda is Brahmabhuvanat Lokaha Bhuvanal Lokaha. Brahmabhuvanat Lokaha Punaha Avartinaha, He Arjuna. Mam Upetya Tu Kaunteya Punaha Janma Na Vidyate. So what's the Anvaya sounding like? Hey Arjuna, Brahmabhuvanat Lokaha Punaravartinaha Eva. He Kaunteya Mam Upetya Punarjanma Tu Na Vidyate. What does that mean? Click on dictionary, right? Hey Arjuna, O Arjun, Brahma Bhuvanat. Is Samanta, Samantat, right? Entire Brahma Bhuvanat, Brahma Bhuvanat. From that entire Brahma Bhuvana, Bhuvanat, At is that Panchami Vibhakti. Akashat Patitam. Brahma Bhuvanat Lokaha, all lokas from that Brahma Loka, from that Brahma Bhuvana. Hey Arjuna, Lokaha Brahma Bhuvanat Punaravartinaha. All lokas right from that Brahma's Bhuvana, Brahma Loka, they are all Punaravartinaha. They have that characteristic traits of being Punaravartinaha. They come again, go, come, go type. Avartinaha. Hey Kaunteya, O Kaunteya, O Kuntiputra, Mam Upetya, having come to me, having reached me, having gained me, Punaha Janma, the rebirth, Tu Navidyate, but doesn't exist, is not known. Right? Even if you take Brahma Loka, even if you take Indra Loka, Rudra Loka, there are different lokas, right? Even, and here he says, Brahma Bhuvana. This Akshara Brahma Paramam, somewhere he is drawing the difference between this Brahma, which then makes us think that we are talking about the Chaturmukha Brahma. Right? But there is a Parabrahma. So he is keeping that distinct. Mam, Upetya. So I am different. Right? So from the Brahma Loka to all other lokas, You have punaravartana. They all have punaravritti, punaravritti, right? So they all have that cycle. Okay. But acquiring me, there is no janma. There is no punarjanma. Very, very simple. Right? Let's see what Aurobindo says. The highest heavens of the cosmic plan, right from the Brahmaloka, right? We have to add that because that is left in the translation, are subject to return to rebirth. Though it doesn't say that precisely. It says punaravartina, they are cyclic. Right? But O Kaunteya, O Kunti Putra, there is no rebirth imposed on that person, that soul, Atma, that comes to me, Purushottama. Okay, that comes to me, Mam Upetya, one who has come to me. So in the 14th shloka, I am very easy. But what's the benefit of having him? He's now, giving some ideas. What is it to be like, to be part of that Brahma Bhava, Parabrahma Bhava, that Krishna consciousness, right? We'll see sloka number 17 now. It reads like this. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Jana Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Jana. See, most of these shlokas, right, whatever we hear, this chapter especially, I think most of them have a very strong references sound from the Upanishads. The Padacheda for this Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahaha Yat Brahmanaha Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasra Antam Te Ahoratra Vidaha Janaha. Okay. This is a very interesting shloka, the way I see. Let's see what the Anvaya sounds like. The Brahmanaha Yat Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahaha Yuga Sahasra Antam Ratrim Cha Viduhu Te Janaha Ahoratra Vidaha. What does that mean? Brahmanaha, of Brahma, of Chaturmukha Brahma, because Brahma Bhuvana Lokaha, right? Yat Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahaha. See, his day is after one Sahasra Yuga Paryanta. Okay, so we have to understand this time sense, right? There are different time sense. This is the Brahmi Samvatsara. When we talk about a Samvatsara like Shubhakrit Nama Samvatsare, we say, right, today, this day, we are currently in the Shubhakrit Nama Samvatsara. Now, Samvatsaras have different nomenclatures. There is a Brahma Samvatsara, there is a Divya Samvatsara, there is a Pitriya Samvatsara, there is a Guru Samvatsara, there is a Saura, there is a Savana, there is a Chandra, there is a Arksha, Akshi. Brahma is this. Brahma. So basically, our our year, our day, the way we calculate our duration of the day varies. One way of counting our day is looking at the star nakshatra. Today will be Pushya nakshatra. Yesterday was Punarvasa nakshatra. So we'll go Ashlesha nakshatra. We look into this list, right? We go count by the nakshatra. There are 27 nakshatras, and that will be 1 month, right? Sometimes the length of the nakshatra can be little here and there. So 1 month will be the Arkshi Samvatsara. There is a Chandra Samvatsara. Like basically, every day we look at the Chandrakala, right? There are 16 Chandrakala. From the new moon to the full moon, there are 16 shades of the moon. From zero to full, in between there are 14, right? There are different Chandrakala, right? Length of it. So one full waxing and waning, complete cycle is 1 month. So that's the Chandra, Chaitra Masa to Falguna. See that, right? The entire cycle. Okay, that is basically the lunar. Then there is a Savana. Savana is basically day. Sunrise now to sunrise tomorrow is 1 day. 30 such days is 1 month, and 360 days is 1 year. Very simple. And then there is Saura. Saura is basically from the time the sun enters one of the constellations. Like when sun enters the Mesha, is where they celebrate the New Year, Mesha Sankramana, right? That is where the Aries around 14th of April. That's what we celebrate, right? So that's the Saura. Saura, sun basically takes 1 month to move from one constellation to another. Saura. Then Guru. Guru is basically Guru takes almost 1 year to uh, move from one constellation to another. So our 1 year can be Guru's one movement into the constellation, something like that, right? So Guru. So there are different dimensions, right? Then we have the Prajapatya, Pitrya. Pitrya is basically Pitru, the 30 days, Amavasya to Amavasya. Now Divya, for the Devatas, our 1 year, 360, 65, 65 and a quarter, whatever is the current latest calculation, right? That entire 1 year, our entire Uttarayana is the Divya day. Our entire Dakshinayana, which is what is currently happening, is the night of the Devatas. Okay, that's it. Now, uh, these things have their length. Like, for example, uh, 12,000 such years of the Devatas will give us one Chaturyuga, right? Now, this shloka says, Sahasra Yuga Pariyantam, 1,000 such Chaturyugas, basically 12,000 into 1,000, 12,000 years of the Devas into 1,000. Okay, Sahasra Yuga, that will be one aha, 1 day. Sahasra Yuga Pariyantam ahaha yat. So this entire thing, right? So see again, the way the calculation happens is our 360 days is 1 day for the Devas. 360 such days is 1 year for the Devatas, and within that they have 4,000 years of the Krita Yuga, 3,000 years of the Dwapara Yuga, some 2,000 years of the Treta Yuga, and some 1,000 years of the uh, Kali Yuga. Right? These are the, and 1,000 is basically 1,000 into 360. That's the way we have to count, right? 1,000 years of in terms of the human years, right? And each of the yugas will also have the yuga sandhya kala and the yuga sandhyamsha kala, which is another 10% of it. So, if 1,000 years of Kali Yuga, I have to add 100 on either side of it, right? So it's basically 1,200, right? So 1,200 plus 2,000 into 120, no, 110%. So you add 200, 200 on either side of it, right? So add all of them, the years and the Sandhya Kala, we get about 12,000, right? 12,000 entire. Now that is the 4 yugas together. Such 1,000 such Chatur yugas is 1 day of the Brahma, and another similar 1,000 years is the Ratri, right? One who understands this length of the day and the night of a Brahma, they are the ones who have understood the Ahoratra. That's what this sloka says. So, Brahmanaha, of the Brahma, yet that which is Sahasrayaga Pariyantam Ahaha, sun. The day is as long as 1,000 Chaturyuga Paryantam, right? That's the length. Roughly about 4.3 billion years, right? When we do the simple math, people interested can listen to this replay file again. If you do the math, it will be around 4.3 billion years. When we look into some of the Anguta chap values in the modern day science, somewhere it bodes well, some of these calculations. But yeah, Ratrim, Yuga Sahasra Antam Ratrim Chavidu. And similar 1,000 yuga elapse becomes The Brahmas one Ratri, one who know that Viduhu. Te Janaha, those people, Ahoratra Vidaha, they understand the concept of the Ahoratra. So Ahoratra, in the literal sense, is day and night. Ahaha, Ratricha, Ahoratra. But Ahoratra is something that we colloquially use for Jyotish calculation, right? Now, Jyotish calculations, we need to know all forms of time. Now, this is just to get the magnitude of the Brahma. What is the Brahma, right? When we try to just get this number out, we will suddenly be brought to this realization how insignificant our one day is when it compares to the when compared to the blink of an eye of Brahma, for example, right? So the blink of an eye of Brahma. I mean, there is another these calculations extend to that level also, right? At one point in time, but Ahoratra is basically getting that proportion right, getting the sense of proportion right, getting the sense of calculation right, getting the sense of time measures right? Ahoratra Vida. Again, right? So I am very easy, but who am I? That Brahma. Now he is giving an indication. Okay. Sahasrega Pariyantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Te Ahoratra Vido Janaha. Those Janas are the ones who understand the Ahoratra time calculation. Those who really understand that Brahma's one day is equivalent to Sahasra Yuga Pariyanta, and Brahma's one night is another Sahasra Yuga Pariyanta. That's the basic interpretation. I'll quickly read out Aurobindo interpretation. Those who know the day of Brahma, 1,000 ages in duration, and the night, 1,000 ages in ending, they are the knowers of the day and night. Very nice interpretation. In the meanwhile, Sudhaji, Shraddhaji, Vijayji, if you have anything to add, please do jump in. If there are others who would like to be part of the stage, please do come up. Because this is just the reading session. I'm just doing the facilitation job. You can all add, right? So now I move on to shloka number 18 now. It reads like this. So did we read the? Yeah, we read the Aurobindo interpretation, right? It reads like this. Shloka number 18. अव्यक्ताद्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके अव्यक्ताद्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके पदच्छेद अव्यक्तात् व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्ति अहः आगमे रात्रि आगमे प्रलीयन्ति तत्र एव अव्यक्त संज्ञके अव्यक्तात् व्यक्तयः इस अव्यक्ताद् व्यक्तयः प्रभवन्ति अहः प्रभवन्त्यः प्रभवन्त्यः आगमे प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे रात्रि आगमे रात्र्यागमे तत्र एव तत्रैव तत्रैव अव्यक्त तत्रैवाव्यक्त संज्ञके. That's the breakdown. We read the Anvaya now. सर्वाः व्यक्तयः अहः आगमे अव्यक्तात् प्रभवन्ति रात्रि आगमे तत्र अव्यक्त संज्ञके एव प्रलीयन्ते. What does that mean? Sarvaha, everyone. We check the dictionary. Right? Sarvaha, everyone, all. Vyaktayaha, the manifestation, the one that has taken the vyakta, right? One who have taken the abhivyakta, one who has taken the manifestation. All manifestations, ahaha agame avyaktat prabhavanti. At the beginning of the day, out of the unmanifest, they come into being. All manifestations come into being from the unmanifest at the time of the day. Whose day? Brahma's day. What is that Brahma's day? Sahasra Yuga Pariyanta. The entire thing is his day. Now everyone has come forth. Now, currently, when entire life activities are happening, when these 4 yugas are running, we can understand this to be the daytime of the Brahma. The Sarvaha Vyaktayaha, all manifestations, Ahaha Agame, at the beginning of the day, at the coming of the day of the Brahma, Avyaktat Prabhavanti, they come from the unmanifest. Ratri Agame, at the arrival of the night, at the coming of the night, Tatra, there, Avyakta Sanjake, into the unmanifest, Eva Praliyante, alone they vanish into, they get dissolved into. Right? At the coming of the day of the Brahma, from the unmanifest, all Vyaktayaha, all manifestations, Prabhavanti, Prakarshanat Bhavanti. Prakatita, no, pra is a very nice word. Prabhavanti, they come into being, they get revealed, right? Ratri Agame, at the time of the night, Tatra Avyakta Sanyake Eva Praliyante. There, into that unmanifest state alone, they get dissolved into. Right? Very easy. Again, what is the advantage of what is being spoken in Shloka 14? No, tasya aham sulabha. I am very easy. But having attained something very easy, what's the benefit? The benefit is know the big picture. First thing is, before we even get the sense of the benefit, let's understand the big picture, right? Being part of the Brahma, Brahma's one day, we know the magnitude. Brahma's one night, we know the magnitude, right? In Brahma's world, there is no Dukkhalaya, Brahma, Bhuvana, Punaravartinorjuna. But his world, there is no Dukkhalaya, right? And the size of it is that, it is for 1,000 yuga length of day and 1,000 yuga length of the night. And within that day, okay, at the coming of the day, all the manifestations, they come into being from the unmanifest. And when the night comes, they again dissolve into the unmanifest. Okay, that's basically the story. Let's see what quickly Aurobindo interpretation says. At the coming of the day, all manifestations are born into being out of the unmanifest. Avyaktat, at the coming of the night, Ratri Agame, all vanish or are dissolved into the unmanifest. Avyakta Sanyake Praliyante. Into it is the unmanifest. Okay, that is the story. We'll quickly move on. So this is all the sense of dimension of the Brahma. Because how to do the chintana of the Brahma, right? How to do the chintana of the Akshara, Paramam, the Brahma who is the Akshara Parama Akshara. Right? So let's see what Shloka number 19 says. Okay, again, needless to say, all of these things, they have strong pramana from the Upanishads. Right? Okay, so Shloka number 19. Bhutagramah sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratriagame vashah partha prabhavatyah ragame. Bhutagramah sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratriagame vashah partha prabhavatyah ragame. The Padacheda Bhutagramah saha eva ayam bhutva bhutva praliyate. Ratri agame avashah partha prabhavati ahaha agame. What does the Anvaya say? Hey Partha, saha eva ayam bhutagramah avashah bhutva bhutva ratri agame praliyate ahaha agame prabhavati. I think he is just paraphrasing whatever was spoken earlier very quickly. He says, hey Partha, oh my dear Partha. So Partha is a very close, dearing name, right? Because that's the maternal connection. Partha is Pritha's son. Uh, so Kunti, Krishna is related to Arjuna through Kunti's side, through the maternal side, right? Hey Partha, oh Partha, oh dear Partha, Saha eva ayam bhutagrama. That alone, this bhutagrama. Bhutagrama is the pack of existences, pack of living beings, pack of grama. Grama is an arrangement, right? One bundle, one team, one line, pack. Bhuta, bhutanam grama. So bhutagrama. Saha eva ayam bhutagrama. Okay, that this bhutagrama itself alone, avashaha, this pack of existences, avashaha, avashya. Avashya is certainly, right? In most of our colloquial usage, avashaha is basically certainly. But avashaha, avashaha is also helplessly, right? But avashaha, you have to see, is Bhagavan, vasha is in captivity. Avashaha, right? So avashaha is in Bhagavan's captivity. Right? Avashaha, helplessly. See, whenever we think the time is helpless, we are basically in Bhagavan's captivity. We will, we are sorted. We don't have to worry. But yeah, avashaha, helplessly, certainly, within the captivity of the Bhagavan. There are three dimensions in which we can think, right? Avashaha, helplessly, avashaha, avashaha, certainly, avashaha, in the vasha of the Bhagavan, right? Aksharanam akarosmi, is Bhagavan, right? Ayam bhutagramaha, saha eva ayam bhutagramaha, avashaha, certainly this bhutagrama, this pack of all living beings, bhutva bhutva, having come again and again, bhutva, having been, having come, coming on to becoming again and again, right? Bhutva bhutva, by coming again and again. Ratri agame, at the coming of the night, praliyate, they get dissolved. Ahaha agame, at the coming of the day, prabhavati, they come, they go. The contraction, expansion, come, go. Bhuta grammar. So now he's explaining some of these concepts were used as a passing statement, like in the 12th shloka of the second chapter. He says, Natvevaham jatunasam, Natvam neme janadipaha, Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha. So never was a time in the past that you, me, and these kings didn't exist. Never will be a time in the future where we won't be. So we are all eternal beings, Arjuna. That's what he starts, right? The beginning of the Bhagavad-Gita, second chapter. That's the line. In the fourth chapter, he says, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna, tanyaham veda sarvani. I and you have had many, many several births. I remember them all. Now, he's giving the science behind how exactly this is. Hey, Partha, this entire pack of living beings, this entire pack of beings, forget living beings. Bhuta is beings, right? Bhavati iti bhuta, one that is, all the bhutagrama, the entire pack of this bhutagrama, avashaha, certainly, helplessly, in the captivity of the Bhagavan's, this entire creation, bhutva bhutva, having come again and again and again, ratragame pradiyate, they dissolve at the time of night, and aharagame prabhavati, and they come back again at the time of the day of the Brahma, which is every 1,000 yugantara, we will have this chesta, and another 1,000 yugantara, we will be in the garbha. We say that Traitasi Dudara Gunavari Prameya. So he holds everything in his stomach, Udara. That's why he's Udara. Right? So we'll see what Aurobindo interpretation says. So this multitude of existences helplessly come, Bhutagramaha, helplessly, Avasha, come into becoming again and again. Bhutva Bhutva. It's dissolved at the coming of the night. Ratragame Praliyante, O Partha, and is born into being at the coming of the day. Aharagame Prabhavaticha. Right? That's the thing. So again, this is all about how we need to think when we are part of that Bhagavan. When we acquire the Bhagavan, project what's happening in this inconsequential plane, time, state of ours to what is the big picture. I think that gives a good sense of proportion of where we need to expand to, right? So, and what is he? What is Paramatma? I think that comes now. Okay, so shloka number 20. Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yassa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat. Too many avagrahas. Vyaktat sanatana yassa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. When we remove those avagraha, I think they are all a. Parastasmat bhavo, anyo, avyakto, avyaktat, sanatana. Right? They're all a. Yasta sarveshu bhuteshu, nashyatsu na vinashyati. The paracheda. Paraha, tasmat tu bhavaha, anyaha, avyaktaha, avyaktat, sanatana. Yaha, saha, sarveshu bhuteshu, nashyatsu na vinashyati. So now the real sense of the Supreme Purusha, right? Before we get there, we'll quickly see the Anvaya. Anvaya reads like this. Tasmat avyaktat tu paraha anyaha yaha sanatanaha avyaktaha bhavaha saha sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu api na vinashyati. What does that mean? Tasmat, therefore, from there, no, here on, tasmat, from that, avyaktat paraha, anyaha. From that avyakta, there is somebody who's paraha, who's beyond, anya, who's another. Yaha sanatana, the one which is sanatana, which is eternal. Avyakta, that is also unmanifest. Bhavaha, bhavaha is the status of being or the expression. Saha sarveshu bhuteshu, he in of all the living beings, nashyatsu, in the vinasha also, na vinashyati, does not perish. Simple logic. See, when the entire creation perishes, what remains? The one that is holding the ashes. What is holding the ashes? That is this other avyakta, the other unmanifest. Very simple. In the plane, in the 3D plane, if you want to imagine this is very, very easy. But what it says is, okay, tasmat avyakta tu paraha anyaha. Therefore, from that avyakta, which is that avyakta? From that avyakta from which all the bhutagrama comes out. Avyaktat vyaktayah sarvaha, right? Prabhavantyah ragame. That's what we heard. I think couple of shlokas prior, I think shloka number 18. Avyakta vyaktayah. From that unmanifest, everyone comes into being. Right? That Brahma, Parabrahma, who sorry, who does the Srishti, in the 18th shloka we saw that. From that avyakta there is somebody beyond. There is a avyakta which is beyond that avyakta, which is beyond that Brahma, beyond the Chaturmukha Brahma. There is something beyond that Chaturmukha Brahma, which is also avyakta, which is even more eternal, which even when everything gets destroyed, everything gets dissolved, that doesn't undergo any nasha, na vinashyati. And again, whenever we hear the word nasha, I think we started this right from the second chapter, Avinashitu Tadvidhi. From that time onward, it's been stressed repeatedly. Whenever we hear the word nasha, let's bear in mind the different dimensions of nasha. Anityatvam, Dehahani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. These are the four dimensions, right? Anityatvam, Dehahani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. Nasha Chaturvidaha Proktaha. Right? These are the four types of Nasha. Anityatva. So we have to bear this in mind. Anityatva is not being current. Dehahani is the nasha that we typically understand with. Dukkha prapti, very easy. Apurnata, a feeling of incompleteness. Right? All these four are equally good nasha, the state of nasha. Okay, so basically this shloka is very, very important. Krishna very clearly draws the line between himself, the Atmas, and the different Chaturmukha Brahma, of whom there is a lot of thing, right? Importance, right? In terms of he is the one who started the entire uh, creation. All the big time senses are around him, centered around him, and things like that. So Krishna is beyond that. In the 15th chapter, he makes a very similar remark, right? We saw 15th chapter before we came to this section. I think we started this journey by looking at the 15th chapter. Yasmat Sharamatitoham Aksharadepi cha Uttama Atosmi Loke Vedesha Pratitah Purushottama. Right? In this chapter also, whenever we see Aurobindo interpretation, we keep hearing the name Purushottama being brought in. I think that's the whole essence. And when we look into the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna is also referring to Krishna as Purushottama, right? That's how he calls Krishna in this chapter. He's called as Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatma Kim Karma Purushottama, right? He asks him, addressing him as Purushottama. And this website also quite often uses, and in the Purushottama Yoga, he explains that I am beyond the Akshara and above all Akshara. And Akshara, Brahma Paramam, that's what he says, right? I am beyond that. I'm way above that Akshara. That's what Krishna says. So he's calling his state to be even above that Brahma, right? To Paraha Anyaha Yaha Sanatanaha. Okay, the other who's Sanatanaha Avyaktaha, who's eternally unmanifest. Okay, and unmanifest bhava, unmanifest being. Saha sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu api na vinashyati. Even at the nasha of all bhutarashi, bhutagana, bhutagrama, na vinashyati. He does not perish. Very simple. Just getting the gravity, just getting the dimensions, just getting the sense of proportion of what we are dealing with when we talk about Paramatma. But this, so Arvind interpretation, right? But this unmanifest is not the original divinity of the being. I don't know where this came from. But this unmanifest, Sanatana Avyaktaha, is not the original divinity of being. I have no idea where it is coming from. There is another status of his existence, Anya, Paraha. Okay, Paraha is also higher, right? Supra cosmic unmanifest beyond this cosmic. Oh, too many words. Okay. There is cosmic non-manifestation, which is eternally self-seated, is not an opposite of this cosmic status of manifestation, but far from above and unlike it. Okay, we need to sit through this translation in detail. I think it will definitely make sense because this website tends to elaborate at times, right? But this unmanifest, which is not the original divinity of the being, there is another status of its existence, a supra-cosmic unmanifest, beyond this cosmic non-manifestation, which is eternally self-seated, is not an opposite of this cosmic status of manifestation, but far above and unlike it, changeless, eternal, not forced to perish with the perishing of all these existences. I don't know why the force comes into play here, but yeah, that's the interpretation here. Nashyatsapi na vinashyati, not force is wrong. Does not perish even with the perishing of the other existences. I think it's very simple. Tasmat, therefore, avyakta to paraha anya, even beyond that avyakta what we spoke of earlier. Yaha sanatana avyakta bhavaha, the one that is an eternal avyakta bhava. Saha sarveshu bhuteshu nachyatsu api, he even at the destruction of all living beings, all bhutarashi, na vinashyati, does not perish. Very simple. He will keep it that way. But yeah, we'll move on to shloka number 20 now. Shloka number 20. It's a very beautiful shloka. Sloka number 21 reads like this. Avyaktokshara ityuktastamahu paramangatiim yam prapya na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Avyaktokshara ityuktah tamahu paramangatiim yam prapya na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. The Padacheda Avyaktaha Aksharaha iti Uktaha Tam Ahuhu Paramam Gatim Yam Prapya Na Nivartante Tat Dhama Paramam Mama. I think again there is a lot of ringing of the message between this part of the 8th chapter and the 15th chapter. Right? We'll see the Anvaya. Avyaktaha Aksharaha iti Uktaha Tam Paramam Gatim Ahuhu Yam Prapya Na Nivartante Tat Mama Paramam Dhama. Now he is explaining whatever you acquire very easily by being constantly in my smarana, what is that being to be? Now he is explaining, right? What is Arjuna saying? Avyaktaha Aksharaha iti Uktaha. Avyakta is called as Akshara. This Avyakta, this unmanifest, is called the Akshara, the immutable, Nakshara. When there is no Kshara, when there is no destruction, when there is no mutation, when there is no change, okay, that is called Akshara. This Avyakta, which is not Vyakta, right? The Avyakta, the unmanifest, this Paramatma, right? This Avyakta Akshara iti Ukta. This Avyakta is called as Akshara. Tam Paramam Gatim Ahu. He is spoken to be a supreme status, a Paramagati. Tam Paramam Gatim Ahu. That itself is spoken of as the highest status, supreme position. Yam Prapya, obtaining which, having attained which, na nivartante, they not return, they don't come back. Tat mama paramam dhama. That is my paramadhama. That is my supreme abode. That is my supreme place of being. Right? So he's explaining that Akshara. Akshara, see, the definition of Akshara, Avyakta is Akshara. What is Akshara? Kutastaha Akshara iti uchyate. That's something that we saw in the 15th chapter. Kutastaha is what? Kuta is what? The top, the summit, the peak. Kutastaha Kutesitaha. The one who is seating at the right at the top, summit. Kutastaha Akshara. That is called as Akshara. And here Avyaktaha is Akshara. So this Avyakta is the supreme place, supreme state, which is the ultimate position. Okay, this abode is mine. Is that abode is mine. That position is mine. Whatever is the highest position somebody can vouch for, that is the Paramadhama of the Bhagavan. That's what he's quintessentially summarizing in this shloka. Let's see what Aurobinda interpretation says. He is called the unmanifest immutable. Him they speak of as the supreme soul and status, and those who attain to him return not. That is my supreme place of being. Okay, I think again the translation is a little difficult. Okay, Avyaktaha Aksharaha iti Uktaha. The Avyakta is called Akshara. Tam Paramam Gatim Ahu. That is called as the Paramagati. Yam Prapya, obtaining which, Nani Vartante, people don't return. That Mama Paramam Dhama. That is my Paramadhama. Simple. Okay, some non-translatables, we will retain them, because that is where the Rasaswada is a little more. So, Shloka number 22, that takes us to Shloka number 22. Another very beautiful Shloka. Purusha Saparah Partha Bhaktya Labhyastvananyaya Yasyantasthani Bhutani Yena Sarvamidam Tatam. Purusha Saparah Partha Bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantastani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. Yena sarvam idam tatam is something that we have heard before. Avinashitu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam. Right? So we will see the padacheda for this in the second chapter. That line was in the second chapter, I think 15, 16 shlokas. Yeah, padacheda for this one, the 22nd shloka of the 8th chapter. Purushah saha paraha partha bhaktya labhyah tu ananyaya yasya antah sthani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. Saha paraha becomes sa paraha. Labhyah tu labhyastu. Labhyastu ananyaya labhyastu ananyaya. Yasya antah yasyantah yasyantah sthani yasyantah sthani. These are the sandhis. Sorry. Anvaya, he Partha, Bhutani yasya antasthani yena idam sarvam tatam saha paraha purushaha tu ananyaya bhaktya eva labhya. I just added the word eva, but not this. Ananyaya bhaktya labhya. Very important. Hey Partha, the meaning, right? You click on dictionary. Hey Partha, oh Partha. Oh, and see, whenever Partha, it's the dearness. Krishna is telling with a lot of, sorry, dearness. Hey Partha, oh Partha. Bhutani, the living beings, all the Bhuta Rashis, Yasya Antastani, who are within whom all the Bhutas are Antahastani, Ante Stitaha Tani. So, the all living beings who are inside him. This is something that we saw in the sixth chapter also. Right? Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yoma, things like that. So, Bhutani Yasya Antasthani. All living beings are inside who? Yena idam sarvam tatam. From whom all of this is coming to being. Bhutani yasya antastani. All living beings are inside whom. And yena sarvamidam tatam. And from whom all of this is extended. Saha paraha purusha. That para purusha, that supreme purusha, too, he is indeed ananyaya bhaktya labhyaha. Very important. He is obtainable, labhyaha, only through ananyaya bhaktya, without any kind of a deviating bhakti. Ananyaya, na anyaya, without any differing, without any distracting kind of a bhakti. Offer yourself completely to me. You're easy. That's the message. No, at the end of the day, all living beings are his own antastani. We are all inside him, and we have come from him. Now, this is a very beautiful thing, right? We are all inside him. We are all coming from him, right? Are we outside of him or are we within him, right? When he says antasthani, we are all inside him. Yena idam sarvam tatam, from whom everything is come out, which means we have we are now outside of him, right? So the thoughts are very beautifully laid out here, and it's both. The answer is both, and I think this kind of a seemingly conflicting statements we keep hearing, right? On one part of the same shloka, it seems like we are all his antastani. Of course we are, and we are all from him. You know, yena idam sarvam tatam. So everything is extended, expanded, branched out from him. Yena idam sarvam tatam. Right. So very very nice, very nice kind of a padaralitya here. But yeah, so these are all good important ones for us to increase our vijnana, increase our understanding of Bhagavad Tattva, right? So the more and more, and these things need to be done upasana on again and again and again. So let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. But that supreme Purusha, Paraha Purusha, has to be won by bhakti, which turns to him alone in whom all beings exist and by whom all this world has been extended in space. Bhakti, but not doesn't say ananyaya bhaktya, unwavering, undistracting bhakti, ananyaya bhaktya labhya. We will see that. We will see that ananya bhakti will be explained a little later, right? So this is very simple. Hey Partha, O Partha, Bhutani yasya antasthani. All living beings are, antasthani of who? Yena idam sarvam tatam. From whom all of this is brought forward, extended. Saha paraha purusha, that parapurusha, supreme purusha, tu ananya bhaktya labhya, is only attainable through ananya bhakti. Right? Very simple translation. With that, we move on to shloka number 23. 23 is another very beautiful shloka. Okay. Now he's explained the the Brahma, the magnitude of Brahma, the bigness. Brahma itself is big, right? Brihatvat iti Brahma, right? So Brahma itself is big, but he's actually laid some thoughts, in the last 3, 4 slokas to grasp that Brahma. What is that big thing, right? Now he goes on to explain some other things because the world has a different understanding of Bhagavan. The world, keeps on pondering over Bhagavan in different ways. And then there are Shastras also that will direct us in that path, right? So now I think he's bringing some balance to that equation. So we'll see what this sloka number 23 says. It reads, यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् मावृत्तिम् चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभा. यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् मावृत्तिम् चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभा. What does the Padacheda give us? Yatra kale tu anavrittim आवृत्तिं च एव योगिनः प्रयाताः यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभा. Bharatarshava also sometimes people break it down. Bharata Rishabha. Anvaya, he Bharatarshava, yatra kale tu prayataha yoginah anavrittim avrittim cha eva yanti tam kalam vakshyami. What does that mean? Hey Bharatarshava, hey best among the Bharatavarsha, the Bharata Vamsha, Bharatakula. Rishabha is the bull. Bull is the foremost, right? Bharatarshava. Hey. And Bharata, see, whenever he uses the word Bharata, Bhagavad-Gita, he's Bharata, right? So he's a Bhakta because the previous sloka ends with Bhakti, right? Purushaha saparaha partha. Ananyaya bhaktya eva tu labhyaha. Bhakti. Whenever we need to have that Bhakti, we have to be Bhagavad-Rati. Hey Bharatarshava, yatra kale, in which path, in which time, tu prayataha, no, the leavers, the departing ones, yoginaha, the yogis, anavrittim avrittim cha. The anavritti is the state of non-written, na avritti, and avrittim, the state of written. So vritti, see, chitta vritti nirodha, right? Yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. Anavritti, avritti can be looked into as in couple of different ways also. One is the returning back, one is getting deluded part. Right? Getting clouded, getting the chitta vritti, the manovritti. Again, manovrittis are fivefold, right? We spoke about that during the 6th adhyaya. No, mudam, chiptam, chavikshiptam, ekagram, nirodhakam. There are different chiptam, mudam, chavikshiptam, ekagram, cha nirodhakam. So there are different times. So the vritti, that manovritti, getting back to say chipta state, getting back to the little bit of ajnana state, that is also avritti. That is also coming back to the being the vritta. being covered, being deluded, right? So we can think of that also. But anavarana is also coming back, right? So avarana, anavarana, coming together, avatarana. So we see that coming together. So avritti can be return, anavritti can be non-return, the state of non-return and state of return. Prayataha yoginaha attain yanti. Okay, they attain the state of return or no return. Hey Bharatarshava, O supreme among Bharatavamsha, the time in which the departing yogis will attain the state of return or no return, tam kalam vakshyami. I will narrate that time to you. Right? So, see, these are some of the things that we need to bear in mind. So, because the question that Arjuna is asking is, prayana kale cha katam jneyah asi. How should I think about you during the departure? But when we look into this story, right, see, that is also the Yuga Dharma. That Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, believed a lot in the yajna, different types of yajna. And uh, one of the things that we hear is that, Bhishmacharya, right now he is in the bed of arrows, right? He could have gone right now, but he waits for a certain number of days for the time to become Uttarayana Kala. Okay, until Uttarayana Kala, he stays. One way of looking at it is that, for him to have a very safe passage to the Swarga Loka, whichever Loka that he wants to go to, like he is expected to go to, right? He Mukta now. Okay, that will be better facilitated in the Uttarayana Kala, something like that, right? There is a belief. So the Ratha Saptami is in the Uttarayana Kala, whereas now the Yuddha Bhumi is happening in the Dakshinayana Kala, right? Margashira Masa, we are still in the Dakshinayana Masa, right? Huh. So basically, he said, no, Krishna is now telling there are belief systems, that many belief systems where you exit during this time, you will have this prapti. You exit at another time, you will be denied this prapti, something like that. Right? So he's now telling, hey Partha, let me tell you the popular times that people understand. Okay, departing in which the yogis will either acquire a path of or state of return or a state of no return. Return can be to life, to this janma, dukkhalaya janma, ashashvata janma, or return back to avidya, because vritti is also the avidya vritti. So we can understand that in a couple of different ways. But I think from now on, Krishna explains the different popular beliefs, and he perhaps makes it very simplistic also, because see, the beauty about Bhagavad-Gita, while there are so many Vedas, Upanishads being brought in throughout the discourse, it is very common, right? Commonsensical, and it's more palatable for the non-erudite. We don't need to be experienced in Vedic education and things like that, right? So the same message is put forward in very subtle, commonsensical, day-to-day understanding level. Right? So yatra kali to anavrittim avrittim cha eva yoginah prayataha yanti tam kalam bharatarshava vakshyami. What does that mean? The urban interpretation, that time wherein departing yogis do not return, or also wherein departing they return, that time shall I declare to you, O foremost of the Bharatas. I think it's 9:30 now. We can adjourn another five shlokas of this chapter remaining. I'm sure we will be able to cover it in the next session, and we will be entering chapter 9, which is just a smooth continuation of the same discourse. Right? It doesn't, unless unless we have put this chapter break as a forced line, right? Uh, Bhagavad-Gita continues. If this is entirely seen as a single conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, the same Bhagavad-Gita continues to the ninth chapter, and we will see why that has been named as a different chapter also. Maybe some thoughts around it, but uh, we will. Thanks everyone for joining. Let's conclude on the reverse count of three. More often with all the things that we do, and please also spread the word amongst those few people that are looking for a safe space like this. And in the process, if anybody wants to come up on stage and share a few tidbits, please do so. This is a community learning. We all learn from our experiences, our different studies. I'm only doing a facilitation job by being the taking the lead on reading it out. I'm reading from a website, right? So that brings us to the conclusion. Shall we conclude now?
Jai Mataji.
Sure, Bhataji.
Sure. Harihi Om. 3, 2, 1. Namaste Vasudevaya. Preyasa me priyottama. Samasta guna sampurna nirdoshanandadayine. Mukopi yat prasadena mukunda shayanayate. Rajarajayate rikto raghavendram tamashraya. Bharati Ramana Mukhya Pranam Tarata Shri Gopala Krishna Priyatam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Have a lovely weekend. Jai Shri Krishna.